You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
This is the moment.
The Bachelorette is back. Yeah! And the power
I'm gonna fall in love.
is in Jen's hands.
And I'm gonna do it my way.
ABC Mondays.
Everything about her is great.
I feel so special.
Jen's looking like a queen.
My men are very, very hot.
Someone call 911. You are looking so fire.
This is the beginning of a new era.
The Bachelorette. All new Mondays, 8/7 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Hi, we're Chris DeRosa
and Dominic Pupa from Fixing Famous People.
And Katie and Nathan wanted us to let you know that they use strong language in this show.
So if that's not your thing, this isn't the show for you. But if you like Queen's podcast, then you'll love Fixing Famous People.
It's the podcast where we, two veteran reality television producers, unpack the biggest celebrity scandals dominating entertainment news
And our lives. Every week, we attempt to fix a new celebrity client by analyzing their missteps and each pitching a solution to return them to glory.
You can find Fixing Famous People literally anywhere you find podcasts.
Hi, this is Katie.
And this is Nathan.
And you're listening to Queen's Podcast, the show about badass women in history.
Nathan.
Katie.
Hey, how are ya?
Wonderful, because we just had a beautiful hike out here in Austin, Texas.
Yes, we went on a lovely little mental wellness hike.
I know, it was gorgeous.
It was so pretty. But now we are back at my house, and we're going to talk some fucking history.
Aren't you even surprised?
Are you even, or drinking or sipping some White Claws?
Because we're breaking the law.
Nathan, are you familiar at all? I know we mentioned her in the first episode for Empress Matilda, but her mother, Matilda of Scotland. I went down.
I am very excited to hear about this.
I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole on her, and I don't think that there's like really enough information on her to do her
proper
own episode.
Yeah.
So I thought she would be a good place for here on Patreon.
I'm excited because we talked a little bit about her and how, you know, the King of Scotland bowed down to her. The Queen of Scotland was related. And we all know that England and Scotland
weren't always chill with each other.
Nope.
So we're going to talk about Matilda of Scotland today and drink some White Claws.
Afternoon delight.
Yeah.
Let's cut that out.
All right. So Matilda of Scotland is most famous for being the mother of Empress Matilda. We don't know her birthday because, of course,
Bag of dicks.
We don't know anybody's fucking birthday.
Well, you're a woman.
Well, we don't know Henry I's birthday either.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So, but we think she was born in 1080.
Okay. So we don't know her sign.
No, we don't know. I do get earth sign vibes from her because she's pretty hard-headed. So, yeah. So this means she was like 22 when Empress Matilda was born.
Okay.
So we love to see somebody not being a child when they're having children. We love to see them older than 14.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So at birth, she was named Edith, but later changed her name to Matilda just to make us annoyed.
I like Edith so much better.
It's just, there's just so many Matildas at the time.
I know.
So many. Just to differentiate, I'm going to keep her as Edith or call her Edith Matilda just because there's so many.
Yeah.
Just to keep her different. Yeah. So her parents were Malcolm III of Scotland and his second wife, a woman named Margaret of Wessex.
Oh, Maggie Wessex.
So she was her dad's 9th kid and first daughter. And
so he had boys on boys on boys.
He had so many boys. He had 6 kids with his first wife who died. And then he married Edith's mom, and they had like 6 more kids.
That's a whole lot of fucking.
Yeah. So he had 11 children and only 2 girls. So she had a sister that was born like a year after
This is
her.
like the opposite problem that we had with
Matilda. Yeah. So yeah, she had a younger sister who was like 2 years younger than her, named Mary, and the rest were just a whole bunch of brothers.
Oh, imagine that. Mary is another name.
Another
we
name.
See a billion times. Where's Elizabeth?
Where is she? No, it's funny though, because yeah, we see Mary so much in history, but like this specific time in history, this was like the only Mary that was coming up. Like it just wasn't a name they were using a lot at that point. She was not the first, famously not the first. But a couple of fun facts about Edith's parents. So her dad is a character in Macbeth.
Oh.
Yeah, her dad Malcolm is.
You mean the Scottish play?
We're not in a theater, so we can say if we were in a theater, we'd have. Well, no, Chris Rock. Whenever he got slapped.
Oh, yeah.
He just a few, not even a minute before, he said Macbeth, and he was in a theater because, like, cursed. It's cursed. Don't say it. But we're not in a theater. We are in my guest room, so
which could be a theater if we need
anywhere is a theater. If you're a theater kid. Anyway, let's pull this back onto track. Her dad, Malcolm, is a character in Macbeth, and her mom is a saint in Roman Catholicism, Saint Margaret. So before Edith is born, Margaret's family was royalty in England, and then William the Conqueror is like, this is mine now. So her family fled England.
One does.
As one does when they're afraid of being genocided.
Yeah, Le Conqueror.
Yeah, when Le Conqueror comes in and starts killing everybody, you're like, I'm just going to skedaddle.
Okay, bye.
Bye. So they were in a boat trying to go somewhere like on mainland Europe, but the weather was just weathering and like everything was...
Can I quote that?
The weather was just weathering.
Okay.
And their boat got off track and crashed in Scotland.
Ooh.
Yeah. They didn't mean to go to Scotland, but they ended up in Scotland. And the place where their boat landed is now called St. Margaret's Hope. The story goes that whenever the King Malcolm went to like go assess the situation with these fleeing royals, he saw Margaret and was just like, love at first sight.
Bone City.
He was just like, need to get into those britches. Like,
get into those britches, bitches.
Gotta get into those britches,
bitches.
I
think that's a new tagline for Queen's Podcast. Get into those britches, bitches.
Those britches, bitches. He was just like smitten is the story. And his wife had been dead for a couple of years. So the story goes, the King of Scotland and this runaway princess get married. St. Margaret and King Malcolm were married, despite the usual custom of naming in Scotland, the royal children would have like traditional Scottish names. She's English. So all of her kids have English names, like Edith and Edgar.
Like spelled with A-E.
Yeah, those kind of things, which is just, a lot of people take that as a sign of just how much Malcolm adored his wife, that he was just like...
He was willing to take on the name.
Like, yeah,
no,
sure.
That makes sense.
Name your kids English names. Fine, whatever.
As long as I can get into your
britches, bitches.
I said every bro ever.
Ever. So Edith's mom was super, super pious, which probably isn't surprising since now we know that she's a saint.
Yeah, makes sense.
And this definitely was reflected in how she raised her kids. So King Malcolm wasn't particularly religious. And it's also thought that maybe he couldn't even read. Like he was not a particularly devoted person. Because back then, like if you learned to read...
You learned to read the Bible.
Were probably brought up in like a religious way. And he just thought it was so cool that his wife was a book nerd. And like how much she loved to read and how much
this.
And so like he was always just like, you want a library? I don't know what any of this
I got
means.
a wife.
Get that bitch a library. Bitches love libraries, And so he would be like, he was always getting her different religious texts and stuff like that. And he was like, I don't get it, but she loves it. If I get her some books, I get in those britches.
Bitches.
it seems like a really good marriage. So Edith Matilda had a good role model of like what a royal marriage should look like. And they actually seemed to be in love, which was not always a given.
No, it's not.
So it appears that her mom basically took control of the girls' educations. Some of the boys,
I love this though.
Some of the boys, some of their sons got sent off to England to be raised at like William the Conqueror's court as a way of being like, kind of like, you know how in Game of Thrones when they send Theon to be raised with the Starks as a way of like making sure Theon's family acted right.
Yeah.
They kind of did that. It was like, okay, send us a couple of your sons so we know you act right.
Common.
We're not going to. Yeah, it was very
common that time.
But the girls got to stay home for a little bit, and the mom was raising them. And those two girls had very, very pious upbringings. Unsurprising.
Bougie?
Oh, it was bougie, but it was also like, her mom was like, you know, we are all about the Bible. This is our absolute favorite book. Bible, morning, day, and night. Like, all the time. But she also taught them the importance of charity. Like, look, we are very lucky. We live in palaces. Not everybody does. So it's important to give
refreshing
back. It's really nice. And this will be important later about like the charity for the poor and sick. We'll get into it in a little bit. But so we loved all that. One thing I didn't love, though, is that Edith's mom very much believed in the saying, like, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Ooh, child, that's how I was raised. It's not beautiful.
It's not great. But it doesn't seem like her mother specifically was any more abusive than any parent at the time. Mm-hmm. So she didn't suffer extreme physical abuse with her mom, but it was sort of like fuck around and find out type of
very fear-ridden childhood.
Yes. Do you remember Matilda of Flanders, William the Conqueror's wife?
Yes.
So she was Edith Matilda's godmother.
I've read that.
At Edith Matilda's christening, it said that the baby reached up and tried to pull the queen's crown off.
Ooh.
Everybody was like, oh, it's a sign that she's going to be queen one day.
I love this.
So maybe that's apocryphal. Oh, that baby's trying to take your crown. Better watch out. But it's a cute little story.
Yes. I love this journey.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. Edith Matilda was about 6. Her mom sent her and her little sister, Mary, off to be educated at an abbey. So her mom's sister, Christina, was the abbess at an abbey in England. Abbey in England.
HBIC, head bitch. HBNIC, head bitch, nun in charge.
Absolutely. So, she was sent to England to this abbey to be educated. Remember, Edith Matilda is half English. Okay. And her mother, like I said, her mom was allowed to name her kids English names. Like, her mother was very into her heritage. And so she was like, I want you to, even though there's other people ruling England now, I still want you to be familiar with, like, where your family's from and stuff like that, which is kind of cool.
Lineage.
Yeah, I think her mom just wanted her to know her roots. I think this is interesting because, spoiler alert, she does go on to be Queen of England. I think that's interesting because a lot of times we hear about these women in these royal marriages that are like sent off to a country that they don't know anything about to be queen. And it's like, no, she knew the people. She knew the customs. She knew, unlike when we were talking about Empress Matilda in the last episode where it was like she was supposed to be Queen of England, but she didn't know fuck about England.
She was from Germany.
She
exactly. Didn't speak any of the language.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of cool that she like got to know the culture and the people from age 6 pretty well. At this abbey, these 2 princesses got an education that was so far above and beyond anybody else.
So they were in the accelerated.
They were in AP everything. First of all, like when girls get an education, even royal girls, you need to read so you can read the Bibles. You need to do math so you can do simple things like with like your house ledger or whatever.
Numbers.
Yeah. But no, these girls were learning Latin, Spanish. They were learning like geometry.
I
don't know what geometry was in 1080.
You can't do math in general.
Hey.
But I mean, this tracks with what all of our royal women.
I have to clap back at that because I know my percentages. I can do math when it comes to like this is 25% off. I can usually tell you what that is.
Oh, she knows the sale when she sees one.
So I can do math when it is relevant to my interest. But A plus B equals squiggly line is not my interest. So
I wish you could have seen Katie's sassy pants face right now. She's like, no.
I can do math when I need to. Anyway, so what I'm getting at is they are educated as fuck. Like, way beyond the standard for even royal girls, way beyond the standard for royal men at the time. Like, they are just educated to 11. They were so educated that at the time, the only people that got these kind of educations typically were people that were meant to either become nuns or priests. And so people start whispering, okay, well, they're getting this education. They're at an abbey. Are the King of Scotland's only daughters going to become nuns? Like, people start whispering. So people thought, okay, yeah, I guess these girls are going to be nuns. That's the education girls tend to get before becoming a nun. And, you know, a lot of people started to whisper, maybe has the King of Scotland's daughters already taken their nun vows or whatever? Yeah. And it became like, most people believed, oh, they've already actually become nuns and they're just keeping it quiet. But he's only got 2 daughters, so that's a weird move. I
can see the drama.
So Edith Matilda would tell people later that she hated her life at the Abbey.
Ooh.
Her aunt, if we thought her mom was spare the rod, spoil the child, her aunt was the next level of it.
No, this is like Handmaid's Tale.
Her aunt was super, super abusive.
She was a Martha.
Yes. And since we know her mom was against sparing the rod or whatever, which was common for the time, if Edith Matilda later spoke out about how cruel her aunt was, I have to imagine it must have been
a big deal.
It must have been really bad. Yeah, don't love this journey for her. I'm uncomfortable.
I'm gonna dance in my chair just awkwardly
until we move on. So
I think that's the intro.
So while she's here, apparently I think her aunt did want Edith and her sister to become nuns because she would make them wear like the nun
habit.
Yes.
The habit. Yeah.
The little headdress.
It's a nun's habit.
Her aunt made them wear the costume.
Yeah.
The nun costume.
Dripping in black eleganza.
Yes. But Edith swears that she protested it, but her aunt would beat the shit out of her, and be like, you're so lucky to have this or whatever, which I mean, she was, but like she was pious and she just didn't think that was where God was calling her. So she would say later that when her aunt wasn't around, she would take off the habit and like stomp on it.
Oh,
which is
that's metal. That is punk rock.
Period statement, declarative sentence. Like
go
she
back
is
to the verb.
The verb is stomp. Like she.
We just Shirley methoded
the fuck. No one's gonna know what that is, but please leave it in. But like I said, people have seen her in the habit now. And they were already kind of whispering about like, oh, I guess the King of Scotland's daughters are nuns now. Okay. King Malcolm hated this rumor. So he rushes down to England. This is when they're like 10 or 11 or something like that.
Still babies.
Yeah. But they've been there for like 5 years or something. So he rushes down to England, came to visit his daughters, and sees them in the nun getup. And he loses his fucking mind. He's like, I did not send them here to be nuns. I sent them here to be educated. I can't have my only 2 daughters being nuns. Like, we need
children.
Yeah, like absolutely.
I have got to pawn my daughter off.
I have to pawn my daughter off.
$2 million.
Yes.
And a cow.
Yeah. Gotta have that cow money. So it's said that he took the habits off of their heads and stamped on them. Because apparently that's just what you did. You stomped on things you didn't like back then.
Okay.
Again, it was a statement.
When you think about it today, like you stomp on someone's grave.
Yeah.
Like that's a negative connotation to be like, I don't like you. So
have you ever stomped on a grave? You say it as if it's like a common, you know.
Well, I mean,
the phrase is dance on their grave, I thought.
Maybe. I maybe have stomped on a couple of graves.
Oh, I didn't know this about you, Nathan. So Malcolm was like, I don't like that you're trying to make my daughters nuns. They are coming back to Scotland with me now. And so she was probably like 12, 11 or something. And so moving back in with the parents.
That's awful. I could never.
Well, if you're 11, maybe you'd be okay.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. So Edith and her sister move back to Scotland, and Malcolm is like, fuck that nun shit. You're getting engaged. You're like 12, you're 11, whatever.
You gotta get you married.
What? Apparently, her parents, they didn't want to get her engaged to someone that she was opposed to. So they brought her several different options, and she shot them all down.
Oh, I love this already.
Yeah, which also kind of fed the rumor, though, that she was actually a nun. But then, despite her disagreement, finally, her parents were like, no, you have to get engaged to one of these guys. And they had her formally betrothed to this dude named Alan Rufus. Rufus back then meant red, so he probably had red hair.
Okay. I love a good ginger.
Alan Rufus, he was a cousin of William the Conqueror, and he was a wealthy landowner both in Normandy and in England. And so everyone was like, yeah, this will be a great match. He was 20 years older than Edith Matilda.
Okay, so he's like 30 something and she's like...
He's like 32 and she's 12, yes. So...
Oh, God. I can't with these old people.
Edith was not into this, but they were just sort of like, you know, it was olden days, so it was sort of like, well, too bad.
I'm so glad I wasn't born back then.
He didn't have like a horrible reputation. I mean, I guess if she would have been like not into it and it would have been like, he also rapes people or something, they would have been like, like he had a good reputation and everything.
That's a direct quote.
Edith, you know, we don't know what her I don't want to marry him reasons were. In my opinion, I think she had her eyes on the Queen prize from day one.
Oh, so she knows what she needs.
I think she was like, well, because at the time, like I said, Henry's brother, William Rufus, was king and he was single. So I think maybe she was like, why are y'all settling for a lord? What that is my opinion.
That's smart.
But again, we don't have anything, like she didn't have a diary. She wasn't writing letters at this time. So
Queen's podcast history.
So the Queen's podcast speculation. I think she was like, I would really like to be queen one day. So Edith probably at this point, though, that was like, no, you're going to marry this English lord. And so she kind of starts mentally prepping herself. I'm going to either move back to England or maybe to Normandy. So she starts preparing herself mentally and kind of maybe starts like learning the landscape and like learning like the political stuff about that because she's smart. So later that year, 1093, she would have been about 13.
She's a smart 13-year-old.
Things go poorly. So England and Scotland go to war. It doesn't matter why.
They always go to war.
They always go to war.
War dicking.
It's kind of like, we always make the joke, it's like, you could be dropped into any time in history and be like, what's going on in the political atmosphere? And someone would be like, England and France are war. And you're like, I need more details. That's always, you know.
That's always happening.
It's pretty similar with England and Scotland. So anyway, they're at war. And this war changes Edith's life forever because on November 13th, her father and her oldest brother from his second marriage die in battle. Her father was like tricked and got a lance through the eye. Oh, that's what happened to Henry, Catherine Medici.
Yeah, Catherine Medici's husband.
So her brother and dad die at this battle. And so that's November 13th. They get a messenger to the palace in Scotland. Like, they tell the queen, your husband and son have died. She dies 3 days later.
Oh my gosh.
Right? The official records say that she died of heartbreak. Is that a thing?
No. I mean, okay. Something weird that has happened in my lifetimes is that my grandparents.
I like how you said lifetimes. Like, you've lived multiple lives. Anyway.
Yeah.
Old soul.
Reincarnation. But I've seen that over and over and over where one spouse dies. And then literally like 2 days apart, they die at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like this.
The theory that I came up with, her mom, St. Margaret, was already fasting back, we talked about this with like Catherine of Aragon and stuff. Our friend Christine actually wrote a blog post for our website called Holy Anorexia.
Oh, I remember that.
Like where women would start.
I mean, no, wait.
Her writing is beautiful.
Beautiful, not the content.
So the theory is that St. Margaret was fasting in hopes of bringing her husband and son back. So she was probably already very frail. And you hear about people with eating disorders often going into cardiac arrest. So that's my theory, is that she was probably already very weak from fasting. And then when she got this news, it just tanked her.
It's like domino effect.
Yes. Again, this is completely speculation because
Queen's podcast speculation.
We just don't know. Anyway, so now both of her parents are dead. This is a very scary time for Edith.
I mean, your parents are dead. I would be
But on top of
scared.
that, brothers from her dad's first marriage. I'm not sure like what the deal is. Like they're either all dead or they can't be king or for whatever reason. But the country does not want her brothers from her mom to be king because they're at war with England. And these boys are half English. And this is a time in history where people don't really have any qualms about like killing children that might be in the way, in the line of succession.
I mean, we've also done Roxelana.
Yeah.
Roxelana was the same thing where it was like, you're a threat.
Yeah.
You're dead.
Yeah.
Like,
and so they're at war with England. She is half English.
Mhm.
Some people might argue she's more English than she is Scottish because she spent so much time in England, like her formative years being raised.
That makes sense.
And yeah, they didn't have any qualms killing children back then. So this is a very, very scary time for Edith.
I'm getting sweaty over here.
Edith's uncle, so her mom's brother, who stayed in England, had lived in England this whole time, and actually had claim to the English throne. But he's a smart dude, and he never, once he saw the tides of like William the Conqueror's coming in, I don't want to get murdered. I'm gonna be buddies. No, more like, hi, I'm gonna be buddies. And he managed to get himself
not bye, but
hi. What can I do? How can I help? Please don't kill me. Yeah. He managed to become friends with the new ruling class, the new dynasty. And so when war broke out with Scotland and England, the king at the time, William Rufus, sent in Edith's maternal uncle being like, you need to go be the peacekeeper here. You need to go be our, what's the word I'm looking, ambassador. You need to go be our ambassador to Scotland, basically. So when Edith's mom died, her brother was already in Scotland. And he kind of got whiff of like, oh, these babies are in danger. So he took Edith and her sister, like just
them up,
put them in the sack, took them back to England, took them to safety. Secretly.
Secret safe.
They're not getting murdered in Scotland.
Yay.
Yes. Yay. But because of that, because he took him away in secret, we don't really know what Edith was up to for like the next 7 years.
Okay.
I guess just chilling at her uncle's house, which I love this.
Chilling at the Holiday Inn.
Yes, just mad chilling, which I kind of want to learn more about her uncle. He seems like a cool dude. He seems like a smart dude. He saved her and her sister. He didn't get murdered. And
that's important.
yeah. Anyways, we don't know what she was doing for the next 7 years. We do know that guy that she was supposed to marry, Alan. He like control Z'd on the entire engagement. He was like, absolutely not.
I don't know.
Now that her dad is dead, and her uncle, her dad's brother, like is now king and doesn't like his English.
Okay.
There was just all this political turmoil in Scotland, so he was like, nope, and he just like went and married somebody else, and so.
Sounds like a smart move.
Yeah. So honestly, though, on the list of things she was worried about, her fiance, who was 20 years older than her, that I don't think she had ever met in person anyway, leaving her, was at the bottom of her list. I don't think she really cared. She was like, no. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So we don't know where Edith was for the next 7 years. Like probably in England. We know they weren't at an abbey because it was like not a nun, super swear,
definitely not
a nun. But we do know that there were bishops that still so strongly believed that the King of Scotland's daughters were nuns that they were like, why aren't they at an abbey? Like, no one's going to try to hurt them at the Abbey. The rumors had gotten so heavy that she had taken these nun vows or whatever, that people thought it was fact. What we do know is that in the year 1100, the King of England, William Rufus, died in a totally not suspicious hunting accident.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We talked about this.
Yeah.
Totally not
suspicious.
Suspicious.
And so now our dude Henry is King of England. And one of his very first actions is he's like, I need a wife. So something about William Rufus, the king before him, his older brother, is that William Rufus never married. And he didn't have any women at court. Like, some people think that he may have been gay. But he didn't, like, we've talked about kings that we think may have been gay, but they had like favorites that are really well documented.
Yeah.
Like, what's his name? Hugh Dispenser.
Yeah.
He didn't have any favorites or anything that have made it down to like through history. So this is just all that he didn't like women and he loved shoes.
Yay, girl.
So that's why people are like, he may have been gay. And you know what? Maybe.
Shoes. Let's buy some shoes.
Like, seriously, William Rufus.
These
like,
shoes are $300 fucking.
Let's get them. That was direct quote from William Rufus. But no, seriously, like, if you know, like, why do people think he was gay? It's like, he was really into his shoes. Like, he had zero interest in women.
Let's get some shoes.
Loved his shoes. Absolutely.
That's Rufus.
So William Rufus, his court had a really bad reputation all throughout Europe. It's kind of just being like a sausage fest of assholes. Like,
sounds really gay.
Since he didn't have a wife, there was no reason to have like ladies in waiting at court. There was no reason to have any women at court. And also, he let his troop burn down villages and rape all the women.
Okay, not cool,
and so
bro.
when people would like complain to him, he just didn't care. He had this really just horrible reputation about not caring about women and just his court just being, what's the word? Just frat boys.
Dickery.
So when Henry comes to the throne, he's like, one of the very first things he does is like, y'all can't rape people anymore. Like,
that's a good law.
That's a good law. Unlike his brother, Henry loved the ladies. Loved them.
Oh no.
Could not get enough. No, it's a good thing. So he was like one of his very first actions is like, I am done with this sausage fest here. I'm getting married and we are bringing women back to court. Women center us. Women make us decent. When there's not women around, we're just running around talking about our
Boning
shoes
butts.
and bumping butts and burning down villages. And we can't do that anymore. I need a wife. And as far as I can tell, he didn't have like a list of ladies that was like, maybe this one, maybe this one. He was like, and it is Edith of Scotland is the only woman that he had on his list because she checked all the boxes. First of all, out of all of his brothers, just a little backstory about Henry I, he was the only one of his brothers to get a formal education. Because they had so many brothers, they assumed that this one was going to eventually become a priest or something. So he was also educated at convents and abbeys and stuff like that. And so he was also really, really, really well educated. So they had that in common. Also, they wanted to kind of like make peace with the Anglo-Saxons, and she was from that lineage. She was also super pious. She was the daughter of a king. So she just checked all the boxes. He also didn't just want a wife for baby-making reasons. He wanted a partner. He was like, I need someone that's going to help me
lead the country.
Run this shit. So I need somebody educated, knows what it is to lead. And so as far as I can tell, he wasn't shopping around. He was like, he was like, Edith or nobody.
That's
like,
my bitch.
Yeah. So
I mean, I don't mean to call her a bitch.
No, but he was like, that's the one.
That's my girl.
That's the only one I'm interested in. Also, since she was raised in England, the Romantics liked to write that they had met previously and they'd been in love for years and years and years. And so that's why Edith Matilda this whole time had been like, no, I'm queen or nothing. I don't know.
Bag of dicks.
Isn't that, I mean, it's a cute story, but I don't know that I necessarily.
I don't agree with that.
It's a cute story, but it is quite possible that they would have met before and knew that they liked each other, that they got along. But I don't think.
Some sort of chemistry.
Yeah, but I don't think that they were like star-crossed lovers that were
bumping butts.
Love, yeah.
Bumping
I don't
butts.
think they were bumping butts before anything. But anyway.
I hope everybody gets the visual sound of.
Yeah. Yeah. The joke comes from that me and my husband just have like one day just got in the dumbest conversation about like sex. That's how sex happens, right? You just hit your butts together, right?
Yeah.
You just bump butts, right?
Clap back.
Just with your butts. That's how I have sex. Anyway. So anyway. So Henry's like, okay, I'm going to marry Edith Matilda. It's the only person on the list. But this guy named Anselm, he is the Archbishop of Canterbury, which is like...
That's a big BFD.
It's
big
BFD.
Fucking deal.
Like, he is the head of the church in England, basically. And he's like, you can't. She's a nun.
She brought up the nun word.
Yeah, he was like...
He brought up the nun word.
He was like, she's a nun. That's how common it was. And remember, Empress Matilda was passed up. It was like the dudes in the church were like, it's because her mother was a nun, so their marriage was never legitimate. Remember?
So
same
that's thing.
The church is like, you can't marry a nun. You can't marry this woman. Edith Matilda is so fucking hard-headed. She is like, absolutely not. She goes to meet this bishop in person.
I love the big clit energy.
She has such big clit energy. And this is where we get the account of the story of her like stomping on the habit. She's like, when my aunt would put that on my head, the only reason I wouldn't tear it off immediately is because she beat the shit out of me. And so when she wasn't around, I would take it off and step on it. I never. And he was like, we have to bring this to a vote. So basically all the bishops from England and Europe met. And she spoke in front of the entire council of bishops to be like, super swear, I'm not a nun. She's like,
oh my God.
She's like 17, 18. Can you imagine?
I could not.
Yeah.
I could not.
I haven't taken these vows. And after a couple of weeks of her having to meet with these guys, which sounds exhausting, they finally were like, okay, I guess she's not a nun.
The fucking shit women have to put up with.
I know.
That's why we have a whole podcast.
And which is so fucked up because Henry was raised at convents and stuff too. No one was like, is he a priest? You know, like.
Yeah. Bag of dicks.
So she convinced them, and I think she also really impressed everyone. And so they were like, on top of us believing that you never took your nun vows, we're also like, okay, she's pretty cool. I think she's gonna be a good queen. And so
there's like, okay,
yeah,
okay, bro.
So in November 1100, Edith Matilda and Henry were married, and she was crowned. And that's when she changed her name to Matilda. But she was like immediately such a popular queen. People were just like, yes, we love her. She is bringing together dynasties, and she's pious, and she's strong-willed, and she was just so popular. She immediately starts all these charities, and her big, like, my favorite cause charity is leprosy. Like, she really had a soft spot for lepers. And she also helped arrange a marriage for her sister Mary to marry the Count of Boulogne. Remember how we briefly talked about Matilda of Boulogne?
Boulogne.
Boulogne. Matilda of Boulogne. That is her sister's daughter. And so, yeah. So soon after their marriage, Edith Matilda is pregnant. She has a daughter named Euphemia.
Ooh, that's a pretty name.
Isn't that a pretty name? And also, it's not Matilda, so I love it. But Euphemia dies. She was either born super premature or something like that, and just was never a healthy child, and dies pretty young. But I think when she died, Edith Matilda was already pregnant because she has babies. And so she had Euphemia in 1101. In 1102, she has Matilda of our Empress Matilda. Mm-hmm. In 1103, she has William. And in 1104, she has a baby named Elizabeth, who also dies.
Oh,
so she was just back to back to back to back.
Fucking.
And after the loss of her daughter Elizabeth, that is when her physical relationship with her husband ended. Maybe she was just like, I don't want to lose any more babies. I can't do this anymore. Which also, because we keep talking about House of the Dragon parallels, reminds me, remember that scene in the first episode when Emma was like, I can't lose another child. This is the last time.
Yeah.
It gave me those kind of vibes.
Maybe she's done with it. Maybe she's Maybelline.
Maybe she's done with it. Also, maybe that pregnancy did something to her physically where she couldn't.
She couldn't do it anymore. Yeah.
We just don't know. But the general consensus is that after losing that last child, she said, I'm done. You've got a healthy daughter, you've got a healthy son. No more babies are coming.
No more.
This is
my uterus is over it.
Closed for business. Yes. And we know Henry had plenty of girlfriends
that he plugged up.
Some people are like, well, how would Henry have felt about this? The general consensus is that Henry didn't like sleeping with her anyway. Because of her piety, she would wear hair shirts. So what that is, that's like this. Oh, that's exactly what it sounds like. It's a shirt made of hair that people would wear under their clothes that would like scratch them all day to remind them of the discomfort that Jesus felt.
Yeah.
So her body was always kind of jacked up from wearing those.
Oh, this is some Illuminati shit.
Also, like we said, she was into like the charity for leprosy. So she built all these like hospitals for lepers and like all these different churches trying to help people with leprosy. When those hospitals or those churches were full, she would house them in her rooms.
That was a big no-no back then.
And so there's this story that survives from her brother that he came to visit her. And when he got into her rooms, she was literally herself washing the feet of lepers and like kissed the feet of a leper.
Ooh, back then that was like a no-no.
And like, so her brother was like, you just kissed this leper. The king's not going to want to kiss you. And she was like, Jesus kissed lepers. Is the king better than Jesus?
Ooh, girl, she right.
So there's a lot of accounts of like the king he loved her because she was a partner and they were smart and they were like intellectual equals. But when she was like, I don't want to have sex with you anymore, he was like, oh my God. He was like, cool, I am fine with this. Yeah. And again, it seemed to work on both of their parts. But anyway, she was so popular, and he was really popular too. The commoners would call them Godiva and Godric, which were both like names that commoners would have. So it was kind of like, this king and queen don't put on airs. They are relatable.
They're normal
to common people. Yeah. They're interested in charities that common people.
Well, I mean, we talked about Godiva.
Yeah.
I mean, Godiva's been a name that's been in English history forever.
Yeah.
And she
was also like a person of the people.
A commoner that was like, I'm willing to give myself up for everybody else. So it made sense.
So they were, and I think if he would have married somebody else, he may have not gotten that same level. So sadly, when she was about 38 years old, after 18 years of being queen, Edith Matilda died. We don't know of what. The court went into deep, deep mourning, and a bunch of her ladies in waiting became nuns.
How ironic.
Yeah.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
So that is the life of Edith Matilda, or as history has known her, Matilda of Scotland. And she really kind of set the precedent of like popular queens in England.
Female history in England.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm going to set the bar.
So I think she was pretty cool. What do you think?
I think this was awesome. Thank you for bringing me on this journey, Katie.
Thank you for going on this journey with me.
We love each other because we love ourselves and love our children because everybody loves it. What's the Chicago?
Because we didn't get enough love in our childhood.
How accurate.
Showbiz kid.
Yep.
All right. Cheers.
Hello, everyone. Stakuyi here.
And I'm Gabby.
And we are the hosts of History of Everything, a podcast which you can probably guess by the name is, well, I mean, it's about everything. Do you want to know why people thought potatoes were evil and would give you syphilis? Are you curious about all the stories of the terrible and stupid ways that people have kicked the bucket over the years? Do you want to hear tales about all of the different badasses of history and the lives that they had brought to life? Well, if so, then look no further. History of Everything is just the right podcast for you. It's available on Spotify, Pandora, and anywhere else that you get your podcast from. Join us for some fun and just see how weird and wacky history can be.